There is a particular kind of exhaustion that lives inside the Chicago syndicate. I know it well. 3 years beside Vincent, the most feared man in the city, and somehow I am just profoundly, deeply tired. Every night, every heavily guarded dinner, every cold room filled with men calculating the exact price of human life. The gunshot rings out at exactly 10:43 p.m. I don't flinch. You stop flinching around the 6th month of marriage in this world. The bullet shatters the crystal chandelier above the main banquet table, sending a sharp, heavy rain of glass and shadows over the imported Italian marble. Men in tailored black suits immediately draw their weapons, their movements synchronized and lethal. Women scream, dropping their champagne flutes as they scramble behind the mahogany pillars. I don't look at the men returning fire. I don't look at the blood slowly pooling near the intricately carved ice sculpture. I'm looking at the table. There, sitting perfectly in the center of the chaos, is a crushed, unrecognizable pile of pink frosting and vanilla sponge, the limited edition strawberry shortcake from Pâtisserie Claire. I stood in line for 3 hours this morning in the freezing Chicago wind to get that cake for my 6-month-old son Leo. 3 hours. And now it is ruined bleeding strawberry jam onto the white tablecloth like a tragic casualty of a war I never signed up for. Heavy footsteps approach from my left. Vincent. He stops beside me, his presence alone enough to make the room freeze despite the active shootout happening in the West Wing. His dark suit is immaculate, untouched by the dust or the panic, not a single hair out of place. He looks at the shattered glass, then at the ruined cake, and finally at my face. "Are you hurt, Chloe?" His voice is entirely flat, devoid of any panic or warmth. It is the voice of a man assessing the damage to his inventory. The cake is ruined, I say. I say it out loud to nobody in particular because saying it to him feels entirely pointless. Vincent follows my gaze back to the smashed frosting. Marcus, his second in command, steps over a groaning rival gang member to stand behind him, reloading his weapon with mechanical precision. Something like mild irritation crosses Vincent's face, but it's not for me. It's for the inconvenience of my focus. "It's just a cake," Vincent says, his tone utterly dismissive. He's already turning his attention back to Marcus to order a perimeter sweep. "Buy another one tomorrow. I will have the bakery brought to the house." I go very quiet, not angry, not broken, just finally completely done. Buy another one. As if the 3 hours I spent freezing didn't matter. As if the last 3 years of dodging bullets, attending these suffocating banquets, and wearing painfully tight dresses just to look the part of a mob boss's wife didn't matter. I look at Vincent, this man who can order the execution of a rival family without blinking, and I realize he will never understand. I don't want to be the untouchable wife of the syndicate boss anymore. I don't want to be a human shield, a strategic liability, or a queen in a bloody game of chess I never wanted to play. I am exhausted. I just want to sit in a rocking chair, feel the sun on my face, and do absolutely nothing. I want to be a completely useless, unbothered person. I turn around and walk toward the exit, my heels clicking softly against the marble. I don't look back. The penthouse is completely quiet when I arrive. It smells like expensive cologne leather and sterile silence. I walk straight into the nursery. Leo is awake, sitting up in his crib, babbling softly at the shadows. When he sees me, he makes that small sound. He always makes that little exhale and reaches his tiny warm hands out. I pick him up, pressing his face against my neck. He folds into me like he knows. "We are leaving Leo," I whisper to him. "We are going to retire." I don't pack much. If I think too hard about the logistics of escaping Vincent, the fear will paralyze me. I move fast and quiet. I pack Leo's formula, his favorite elephant blanket, and a few comfortable cotton clothes that aren't dry clean only. Then I stop by Vincent's study. The mahogany desk is perfectly organized, intimidating in its neatness. I open the top drawer and pull out the unrestricted black card. It is a joint account. Technically, half of the syndicate's clean laundered money belongs to me as his legal wife. If I am going to run away from a mafia boss to live a gloriously lazy life, I will need proper funding. I slide the black card into my diaper bag. No guilt, no hesitation. I pull off my wedding ring. The massive, flawless diamond feels more like a heavy shackle than a promise of love. I set it down on the very center of his desk. Right next to it, I leave a single piece of paper. A standard legally binding divorce contract I had my lawyer draft months ago, kept hidden for a moment, exactly like this. I sign my name at the bottom. The sound of the pen scratching against the paper is the loudest thing in the room. By 4 a.m., I am sitting in the first-class cabin of a private commercial flight heading south, far south. The flight attendant offers me a warm towel. I take it, wipe Leo's cheek, and look out the window as the Chicago skyline shrinks into the dark. The city of cold winds, cold guns, and a cold husband is finally behind me. I close my eyes and picture the destination, Seaside, Florida. A small, sleepy beach town where the air smells like salt and sunscreen, not gunpowder. I'm going to buy a small shop right on the beach. I'm going to sell bubble tea. I'm going to hire someone else to shake the tea while I sit behind the counter counting small change and taking naps in the afternoon. No syndicates, no rival families, just tapioca pearls and absolute peace. My phone buzzes in my pocket. Once, twice, then a continuous, relentless vibration. I don't need to look at the screen to know who it is. Vincent has discovered the empty nursery. The great, terrifying boss of the Chicago underworld is probably tearing the city apart piece by piece as we speak. I calmly pull the phone out, slide it into airplane mode, and order a glass of warm milk for Leo. Let him search. I have a boba shop to open. The air in Seaside, Florida does not smell like ozone imported cigars or fear. It smells like sea salt, melted brown sugar, and sunscreen. I wipe the pristine white counter of the salted fish for the third time this morning, not because it is dirty, but because the repetitive, mindless motion is an absolute luxury. For 3 long years, the only things I wiped away were alibis and occasionally specks of blood from Vincent's immaculate suits. I spent my days calculating the hidden motives of politicians and smiling at men who would slit my throat if given the right price. Now my biggest adversary is a sticky drop of tapioca syrup on a stainless steel counter. Leo is asleep in a soft mesh playpen in the sunlit corner of the shop, his small arms wrapped tightly around his plush elephant. There is no bulletproof glass on the windows. There are no silent bodyguards standing at the door with concealed weapons tracking every shadow that moves across the pavement. There is just the gentle hum of the commercial refrigerator, the rhythmic crashing of the waves outside, and the soft reggae music playing from a cheap Bluetooth speaker. It has been exactly 3 days since I left the Chicago Syndicate. 3 days since I traded million-dollar banquets and the suffocating weight of the underworld for a $15 an hour existence. I breathe in the vanilla-scented air and lean against the counter. I have never felt richer in my entire life. I know exactly what is happening in Chicago right now. You do not leave the most powerful, ruthless man in the Midwest without triggering a catastrophic earthquake. In my mind, I can vividly see the syndicate headquarters. The heavy, reinforced oak doors are locked down. The underground interrogation rooms that smell of metallic rust and industrial bleach are full. Vincent is likely sitting in the dark, his face an unreadable, terrifying mask of rage. By syndicate logic, a missing wife is a kidnapped wife. To Vincent, a man whose entire life revolves around anticipating betrayals and neutralizing threats, there is simply no possibility that I packed a diaper bag and walked away on my own 2 feet. Right now, he is likely interrogating the Russian factions tearing through the Italian remnants, utterly convinced they are holding me in some damp, windowless basement, torturing me for leverage. His overthinking mind, which made him a brilliant mob boss, is his worst enemy in a marriage. He is probably imagining me starved, weeping, and broken holding Leo in the dark as I wait for him to save me. A cheerful chime sounds. The brass bell above my shop door rings cheerfully. A pair of teenage girls in bright floral swimsuits walk in laughing about a seagull that stole their fries. "Hi, can we get 2 brown sugar boba milks? Extra pearls, please," one of them asks, leaning over the counter. "Of course," I say, offering a warm, practiced smile. I take their crumpled $5 bills and drop them into the glass tip jar. The coins clink cheerfully, a bright, innocent sound. I wonder exactly how many illegal warehouses Vincent has ordered burned to the ground today. I grab the plastic cocktail mixer, fill it with milk tea and ice, and begin to shake it. The rhythmic, rattling sound of the ice hitting the plastic completely drowns out the violent ghosts of Chicago. It happens at 2:15 p.m., the slowest, sleepiest hour of the afternoon. I am attempting to calculate the optimal ratio of ice to tea for a new menu item when the ground begins to vibrate. It is subtle at first, a low, ominous rumble that rattles the empty plastic cups stacked on the shelf. Then comes the sharp, aggressive screech of heavy tires violently braking against asphalt. I look up through the wide glass windows. 5 matte black armored Cadillac Escalades aggressively pull up onto the narrow beachfront street, completely ignoring the no parking signs and blocking a family on a tandem bicycle. The contrast is almost offensively comical. These hulking, terrifying beasts of the criminal underworld parked right next to pastel-colored surfboards in a wooden stand selling seashell necklaces. The doors of the SUVs open simultaneously. Men in tailored black suits pour out, moving with the terrifying, synchronized precision of a military strike team. They immediately form a defensive perimeter, their hands resting instinctively over the slight bulges in their jackets. Tourists on the sidewalk freeze in their tracks, their ice cream cones melting onto their hands as they stare in shock. Then the heavy door to the center Escalade opens. Vincent steps out. He looks like a localized hurricane. His suit jacket is gone, his tie violently loosened, an unprecedented level of dishevelment for a man who treats his wardrobe like a suit of armor. His face is deathly pale, his jaw set so tight it looks carved from marble. But it is his eyes that give him away. They are bloodshot wild and completely hollowed out by 3 days of unspeakable violent panic. He doesn't walk toward the shop, he closes the distance like a starving predator zeroing in on a target. The glass door of the salted fish is practically ripped off its hinges as he throws it open. The little welcoming bell above the frame gives a sad, strangled ring before violently swinging into the wall. 4 armed guards flood the room behind him, their eyes darting, rapidly sweeping the corners, clearing the blind angles. They expect a trap. They expect an ambush. They expect to find blood. Vincent stops dead in the middle of the pastel pink and mint green floor tiles. He is breathing hard, his broad chest heaving as his red-rimmed eyes frantically scan the room before locking onto me. I am standing securely behind the counter, wearing a beige canvas apron with a cartoon whale printed on it. My hair is tied up in a messy, haphazard bun, held together by a plastic clip. In my left hand, I hold a metal scoop filled with shiny black tapioca pearls. The silence in the room is absolute. It is the heavy, suffocating kind of silence that usually precedes a cartel execution. Vincent stares at me. He stares at the cartoon whale on my apron. He looks at Leo, who is happily chewing on a plastic teething ring in his brightly colored playpen, completely unharmed. He looks back at me. His brilliant tactical brain, wired for war betrayal and bloodshed, is violently short-circuiting, trying to process the pastel menu board mounted behind my head. Chloe, he breathes out. His voice is a broken, raspy thing. It is the sound of a man who has dragged himself through hell, fully prepared to slaughter everyone in this room to pull my tortured body from the wreckage, only to find out there is no wreckage at all. I look at the terrifying boss of the Chicago Syndicate. I look at his 4 lethal bodyguards whose hands are still gripping their concealed firearms. I calmly tap my stainless steel scoop against the rim of the pearl container. The sharp clack makes 2 of the hardened guards flinch. If you are going to stand there, I say, my voice perfectly calm and entirely flat, you need to line up, and you're blocking the menu. Vincent blinks once, twice. The fearsome, murderous aura surrounding him completely shatters, rapidly replaced by a profound, agonizing confusion. What? The menu. I point to the chalkboard with my scoop. Green Thai tea or red Thai tea. How much ice? We are out of aloe vera jelly, but the brown sugar pearls are fresh. Marcus, the Syndicate's deadliest enforcer and Vincent's second in command, has just rushed in behind his boss. He freezes at the doorway. His hand is halfway to his shoulder holster. He stares blankly at the giant vats of swirling milk tea, then at my apron, and finally at the display of freshly baked pastries on the counter. His nostrils flare slightly, taking in the scent of butter and sugar. Vincent takes a slow, shaky step forward, his hands trembling slightly at his sides. Chloe, who did this to you? Who brought you here? Delta Airlines, I reply without missing a beat. Flight 482. Look, Vincent, I have a business to run. Are you ordering or are you loitering? Because loitering is bad for foot traffic. For a full 10 seconds, the deadliest man in the Midwest just stands there utterly dismantled by the sheer, unapologetic normalcy of the moment. The Syndicate survival protocols did not prepare him for this. There is no enemy to shoot. There is no bomb to defuse. There is only his wife wearing a whale apron demanding his order, slowly mechanically driven by an ingrained, almost pathetic instinct to comply with my demands. Vincent reaches into his tailored trousers. He pulls out a sleek leather wallet. Red, he says, his voice completely hollow and bewildered. Red Thai tea, normal ice. That will be $6.50, I say, smoothly punching the numbers into the point of sale tablet. Vincent hands me a crisp $100 bill. His hand is still visibly shaking. I press the print button, tear off the receipt, and hand it to him along with his $93.50 in change. Your order number is 42. Please step aside so your heavily armed associates can order. I turn around, grab a plastic shaker, and begin mixing the tea. The loud, rattling sound of the ice hitting the plastic fills the room, completely dismissing the heavy weight of the underworld he brought with him. I am not a mob wife anymore. I am just a woman making tea. And for the first time in his life, Vincent has absolutely no idea what to do next. Vincent did not go back to Chicago. I suppose I should have expected that. You do not become the apex predator of the Midwestern underworld by walking away when someone tells you to step aside. However, I did not expect his particular method of stubbornness. By Tuesday morning, Vincent had purchased the entire street. He didn't just rent a room, he bought the pastel yellow boutique hotel across from my shop. He bought the vintage surf rental store next to it. If it were legally possible to purchase the Atlantic Ocean, I am fairly certain his lawyers would be drafting the paperwork. Now, instead of seagulls and wandering tourists, the sidewalk outside the Salted Fish is permanently lined with men in dark, tailored suits, trying very hard to look like they are casually enjoying the Florida sunshine. It is a catastrophic failure. They look like a flock of highly lethal, severely depressed crows. But I am committed to my lazy, peaceful existence. I refuse to let the Chicago syndicate disrupt my tapioca boiling schedule. As long as they pay full price for their beverages and respect the queue, I genuinely do not care if they use my Wi-Fi to launder offshore accounts. On Thursday, the real betrayal happens. It is a quiet afternoon. The sea breeze is drifting through the open windows, bringing the scent of salt to mix with the heavy, sweet aroma of baking butter in my shop. I had decided to bake, not out of any grand ambition, but simply because Leo likes to watch the stand mixer spin. I made a batch of vanilla bean crepe cakes and a tray of sea salt caramel croissants. The little brass bell chimes. Marcus walks in. Marcus is Vincent's second in command. He is 6'4", built like a reinforced concrete vault, and possesses a face that has made rival cartel bosses weep in interrogation rooms. Rumor has it he once dismantled an entire warehouse of armed mercenaries using only a broken pool cue and absolute silence. He walks up to the counter, his eyes mechanically scanning the room for sniper trajectories, his hand resting lightly over the bulge of his shoulder holster. "The boss wants a perimeter check on your supply room," Marcus says. His voice is a deep, gravelly rumble that vibrates in my display case. "And the supply room has flour sugar and industrial-sized cans of evaporated milk." I reply lazily, resting my chin on my hand. "Unless you are planning to aggressively whisk a meringue, there is no threat in there." Marcus narrows his cold gray eyes. He looks at me, then his gaze drifts downward. It locks onto the glass display case. Specifically, it locks onto the freshly glazed sea salt caramel croissants, still warm and shimmering under the warm bakery lights. I watch as Adam's apple bob, the deadliest enforcer in North America, swallows hard. "Are those hand-laminated?" he asks. The menacing gravel in his voice falters, replaced by a strange, almost breathless reverence. "Yes," I say, blinking in surprise. "I folded the butter in myself this morning. It took 3 hours. I had nothing better to do." 3 hours, Marcus whispers. He slowly raises a massive scarred hand and points a thick finger at the pastry. "I need one, for security assessment purposes." I use a pair of metal tongs to place a croissant on a small porcelain plate. I slide it across the counter. Marcus stares at it like it is a bomb he needs to defuse. He carefully picks it up, ignoring the napkin, and takes a bite. The flaky golden crust shatters perfectly. The rich salted caramel oozes out, catching the afternoon light. I watch the exact moment Marcus's soul leaves the mafia. His hardened, terrifying eyes flutter shut. A profound, almost religious expression of peace washes over his scarred face. A single dramatic tear slips from the corner of his eye and rolls down his cheek, disappearing into his collar. "The butter." Marcus chokes out his voice, thick with emotion. The butter ratio is flawless. The lamination it sings. It actually sings Chloe. Before I can process what is happening, Marcus violently rips off his custom-tailored suit jacket and throws it onto the floor. He unbuckles his shoulder holster, letting 2 loaded Glock pistols clatter onto the pastel pink tiles. He marches around the counter, grabs a spare floral print apron hanging on the wall, and ties it tightly around his massive waist. The door to the shop violently swings open. Vincent stands there, breathless, having seen his top enforcer disarm himself through the front window. "Marcus," Vincent barks, his voice ringing with absolute authority. "What the hell are you doing? Is it a hit? Did you find a wire?" Marcus slowly turns to look at his boss of 15 years. He is holding a silicone spatula. "I resign, Vincent." Marcus says, his tone deadpan and completely resolute. "I am a pastry chef now. If you interrupt the resting phase of my dough, I will kill you." Vincent freezes. The great overlord of the Chicago underworld stands completely paralyzed in the doorway, his brilliant tactical mind utterly unable to comprehend why his most ruthless killer is now fiercely guarding a bowl of whipped cream. I just sigh, ring up the croissant on the cash register, and hand Marcus a hairnet. By the end of the week, a strange, surreal routine has settled over the salted fish. Marcus handles the bakery aggressively, intimidating the dough into submission and producing the most exquisite French pastries Florida has ever seen. I handle the boba, perfectly content to sit on a stool and let the automatic shaker machine do the work. And Vincent has claimed table number 4 in the far corner of the shop. Every morning, exactly at 8 a.m., the fearsome mob boss walks in wearing a crisp, dark suit. He orders a strawberry milk tea with rainbow jelly because he cannot handle caffeine on an empty stomach, a fact he would kill anyone else for knowing. He sits at table 4, opening million-dollar shipping manifest and illegal arms contracts on his laptop. He thinks he looks like a dark, brooding king overseeing his empire. In reality, he just looks like a remarkably handsome, deeply pathetic man desperately staring at his wife. He watches me wipe the counters. He watches me ring up customers. If a male tourist lingers too long at the register or smiles a bit too widely at me, Vincent doesn't say a word. He just slowly closes his laptop, his eyes going completely dead, radiating a murderous aura so thick that the poor tourist usually stammers, forgets his change, and runs out of the shop in sheer terror. "You are hurting my tips," I tell him one afternoon, dropping a fresh strawberry tea onto his table. "I am securing the perimeter," Vincent replies smoothly, not breaking eye contact. "He was looking at your ankles." "I am wearing sweatpants, Vincent. Nobody is looking at my ankles." He doesn't argue, but he doesn't leave either. He just sits there, trapped between the violent world he rules and the quiet world I have chosen. It is exhausting to watch him try to bridge the gap, yet strangely, I find myself not hating his presence. The climax of this bizarre new reality arrives on a humid Friday evening. It is closing time. The shop is empty save for Marcus aggressively scrubbing the oven in the back, and Vincent, who is still hovering near the front door. I am exhausted. Leo has been fussy all day, and my arms ache from carrying him while sweeping. I tie up the heavy leaking garbage bag full of sticky boba cups and wet tea leaves. It is massive and uncooperative. I grab the plastic ties, but before I can lift it, a large, impeccably manicured hand wraps around the top of the bag. I look up. Vincent is standing right next to me. His suit jacket is off his expensive silk tie draped over a chair. He looks at the garbage bag with the intense, calculating focus he usually reserves for dismembering rival cartels. "I will handle the disposal," Vincent says, his voice low and serious. "Vincent, it's a trash bag, not a body. It leaks. You're wearing a $3,000 Brioni shirt." "I am aware of the risks," he replies flatly. With a deep breath, the apex predator of Chicago hefts the dripping sticky bag of garbage over his shoulder. A streak of brown sugar syrup immediately splatters across his pristine white silk shoulder. Vincent's eye twitches, but he does not let go. He marches rigidly out the back door toward the heavy metal dumpsters in the alley. I follow him, holding Leo against my hip, just to make sure he doesn't accidentally shoot the dumpster in frustration. Vincent struggles. The lid of the dumpster is rusted and heavy. He uses one hand to prop it open, the veins in his forearm popping as he wrestles the massive, awkward bag into the metal bin. He is out of his element, stripped of his guns, his soldiers, and his power, fighting a losing battle against municipal waste. He finally shoves the bag in, letting the heavy lid slam shut with a loud, ringing, metallic crash. He turns around, breathing heavily. He has syrup on his neck. His shirt is ruined. He looks utterly ridiculous. He looks human. For a long moment, we just look at each other in the dim light of the alleyway. The cold, impenetrable wall between us feels incredibly thin. Then the silence is broken by a small, bright sound. I look down. Leo is pointing a tiny chubby finger directly at Vincent. The baby's face breaks into a massive gummy smile, his eyes shining with absolute delight. "Dada," Leo babbles loudly. "Dada." The alley goes perfectly completely still. Vincent freezes. The air seems to get stuck in his throat. This terrifying man who has never flinched in the face of death suddenly looks completely dismantled. His dark eyes widen, welling up with a sudden overwhelming moisture he cannot hide. He takes a shaky step forward, completely forgetting the syrup, the ruined shirt, and the empire waiting for him in Chicago. "Yeah," Vincent whispers, his voice cracking, entirely stripped of its armor. "Yeah, Dada is here." There is a strange, fragile ecosystem that develops when you introduce an apex predator into a highly commercial pastel-colored environment. It had been nearly 2 weeks since the absolute ruler of the Chicago underworld had forcibly relocated his command center to Table 4 of my boba shop. The dynamic was absurd, yet it functioned with terrifying efficiency. Marcus, the syndicate's most lethal interrogator, had fully embraced his new identity. He spent his days in the back kitchen aggressively laminating dough and murmuring dark, violent threats to the yeast if it did not rise to his exact specifications. Outside, a rotating shift of highly trained, heavily armed men in dark suits pretended to read tourist brochures while scanning the beach for snipers. And then there was Vincent. He still wore his bespoke Italian suits, though he had compromised by unbuttoning the collar and abandoning the tie. He sat at Table 4 every single day, from opening until closing. He drank exactly 3 strawberry milk teas, answered encrypted emails on his secure laptop, and watched me with the intense, unblinking focus of a man monitoring a volatile explosive. I ignored him. I wiped down the counters, shook the iced teas, and counted the cash register. I had traded the gilded cage of a mafia wife for the exhausting honest labor of a small business owner, and I was fiercely protective of my peace. Unfortunately, peace in the service industry is always temporary. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon. The shop was relatively quiet. Leo was napping in his reinforced playpen, clutching his stuffed elephant. Vincent was on a low-volume conference call, quietly authorizing the hostile takeover of a logistics company in Detroit. The little brass bell above the door chimed, followed immediately by the loud abrasive sound of a metal chair being violently kicked aside. 3 men walked into the Salted Fish. They were not wearing bespoke Italian suits. They wore cheap leather jackets, heavily distressed denim, and a level of unearned confidence that immediately irritated me. They reeked of cheap beer and stale cigarette smoke. They were local thugs, the kind of small-time neighborhood extortionists who preyed on independent mom and pop shops along the boardwalk. The leader, a thick-necked man with a poorly rendered skull tattoo on his throat, swaggered up to the counter. He slammed a heavy, scarred fist down onto the pristine glass of my pastry display case. "Nice place you got here, lady." He sneered, his voice loud enough to echo off the pastel walls. "Be a real shame if something happened to those big windows. Real shame if a fire started in the kitchen. The boardwalk is a dangerous place. You need protection. Our protection." He smirked, leaning heavily over the counter. $500 a week. Cash. Starting today. I did not blink. I did not reach for the panic button. After spending 3 years having dinner with cartel bosses who would casually order the execution of entire bloodlines over an undercooked steak, a sweaty man in a cheap leather jacket demanding $500 was profoundly underwhelming. I looked at his fist resting on my glass case. Then I looked at his face. "Remove your hand from the glass," I said, my voice completely flat and devoid of any emotion. "You are leaving smudges. I just polished it." The thug blinked, clearly thrown off script by my lack of terror. His face flushed dark red with sudden anger. "Listen here, you stupid." He never finished the sentence. The temperature in the room plummeted so rapidly it felt physical. The ambient noise of the shop, the whirring refrigerator, the soft reggae music was instantly swallowed by a suffocating, lethal silence. I didn't have to look at Table 4 to know what was happening. Vincent had closed his laptop. The heavy, rhythmic thud of expensive leather shoes against the floorboards echoed through the shop. Vincent stepped out from the shadows of the corner, his face an absolute terrifying mask of cold, predatory rage. He did not yell. He did not posture. He simply existed in the space, radiating a violent aura so dense it made the air hard to breathe. Outside, the facade of the casual tourists completely vanished. Through the large glass windows, I could see 4 of Vincent's men simultaneously unbutton their suit jackets, their hands resting decisively on the grips of their concealed weapons. The street had gone dead quiet. The local thugs froze. The leader turned around and the color instantly drained from his face. His primitive survival instincts were screaming at him that he had just walked into a slaughterhouse. Vincent stopped exactly 2 feet behind the men. His dark, hollow eyes were fixed on the leader's skull tattoo. "You have exactly 3 seconds," Vincent whispered, his voice a razor-sharp blade sliding through the quiet room, "to explain why you are raising your voice at my wife. And then I am going to peel the skin off your face and feed it to the seagulls." The man trembled violently. He opened his mouth, but only a pathetic, breathless wheeze came out. Vincent's hand slowly reached inside his suit jacket. He was going to execute them. Right here on my pastel pink floor tiles, over $500. "Vincent, stop." My voice cracked like a whip across the room. Vincent froze. His hand remained inside his jacket, but his eyes darted to me. The absolute rage in his expression flickered, immediately warring with his ingrained instinct to listen to me. "I just mopped the floors," I said, crossing my arms over my canvas whale apron. "I am not spending my Tuesday evening bleaching blood out of the grout. Stand down." "And Chloe," Vincent said, his voice dropping into a dangerous, gravelly register, "they threatened you." "They threatened the windows." I corrected him calmly. I stepped out from behind the counter and walked right up to the terrified gang leader. He was shaking so hard he looked like he might collapse. I channeled every ounce of the cold psychological intimidation I had learned from sitting beside Vincent in Chicago. I lowered my voice to a soft, deadpan pitch. "You run a protection racket," I said, staring directly into the thug's wide, panicked eyes. "But your market research is abysmal. You failed to assess the target. You failed to secure the perimeter, and now you have deeply inconvenienced my business operations." I reached over and tapped the glass display case where his sweaty hand had rested. "Your operation is inefficient," I continued smoothly. "Therefore, you owe me a penalty fee for the disruption. You cannot afford to pay me in cash, so you will pay me in labor. The mop is in the back closet. The heavy-duty sponges are under the sink. You will clean the front windows, scrub the baseboards, and sanitize the public restroom. If you leave a single streak on the glass, the man standing behind you will handle your performance review." I looked at Vincent. "Is that acceptable to you, darling?" Vincent stared at me. The murderous tension slowly drained from his shoulders, replaced by a look of profound, almost reverent awe. He slowly pulled his empty hand out of his jacket. "Very acceptable," Vincent murmured softly. The 3 local thugs practically sprinted to the back supply closet, fighting each other over the mop bucket and the bleach. They scrubbed the floors with the desperate, frantic energy of men fighting for their lives. But the psychological warfare did not end there. Outside, Vincent's men had witnessed the entire exchange through the windows. The syndicate guards, fiercely loyal and deeply competitive, suddenly realized that random street thugs were providing free labor for the boss's wife. It was a severe breach of honor. Within 5 minutes, the front door opened. 2 heavily armed, terrifyingly stoic mobsters walked in. They grabbed the damp wiping cloths from the counter. "Please step aside, boss," one of them said grimly. "We cannot allow unauthorized personnel to handle the sanitation of the esteemed establishment." Before I knew what was happening, my boba shop was hijacked by the Chicago Mafia's customer service initiative. When a group of college students walked in 10 minutes later, they were immediately greeted by 4 massive men in dark suits, bowing perfectly at a 90-degree angle. "Welcome, esteemed customers," they roared in absolute terrifying unison. "Please enjoy the excellence of our hand-shaken beverages." The students looked absolutely horrified, clutching each other in fear, but the brown sugar boba was too highly rated on Yelp for them to retreat. They nervously ordered paid exact change and scurried to a corner table. I stood behind the counter, pinching the bridge of my nose as a massive headache began to form. Vincent walked up to the register. The intimidating mob boss aura was completely gone. He just looked at me, his dark eyes searching my face, trying to decipher the complex puzzle of my actions. "You didn't let me kill them," he said quietly. It wasn't an accusation, it was a realization. "No, I didn't," I replied, wiping down the register screen. "I thought in Chicago." "I thought you hated me," Vincent said. His voice was incredibly vulnerable, stripped of all the power and wealth he possessed. "I thought you ran away because of who I am." I stopped wiping the counter. I looked up at the man I had married, the man who had bought an entire street just to sit quietly in the corner and drink milk tea he didn't even like. "I never hated you, Vincent," I said softly, the truth slipping out into the quiet space between us. "I hated the blood. I hated the fear. I hated that every time you left the house, I didn't know if you were coming back. I ran away from the violence. I ran away to live." Vincent stood incredibly still. For 3 years, he had operated under the assumption that keeping me in the dark, surrounded by guards, was how he showed love. He thought power was safety. He didn't realize it was a cage. Slowly, deliberately, Vincent reached up. He unbuttoned his Brioni suit jacket. He slid it off his broad shoulders and folded it neatly onto a chair. He pulled off his expensive silk cufflinks, sliding them into his pocket, and then slowly rolled the sleeves of his crisp white shirt up to his elbows, revealing the faint, pale scars on his forearms. He walked around the counter. He didn't ask for permission. He stepped into the small, cramped space beside me, smelling of clean cologne and sea salt. He picked up a plastic cocktail shaker and a pair of metal tongs. "Red Thai tea, normal ice." Vincent said, his voice steady, his eyes locking onto mine with a new quiet determination. "Teach me how to shake it." There is a distinct rhythmic quiet that settles over the salted fish after 9 p.m. The reggae music is turned off. The espresso machines power down with a soft hiss. The only sound left is the distant, endless crashing of the Atlantic Ocean, framed perfectly by the large rectangular front window that makes the dark beach look like a cinematic projection of absolute isolation. It is 11:14 p.m. The shop is closed, but the lights in the back kitchen are still blazing. Leo is fast asleep in his playpen near the dry storage racks. He is breathing softly, his tiny chest rising and falling in perfect, peaceful intervals. Beside him, his favorite plush gray elephant is placed exactly the way he likes it, standing firmly on all 4 of its soft, stuffed feet on the mattress guarding his dreams. I am sitting at the stainless steel prep table, a calculator in one hand, and a stack of heavily stained invoices in the other. A few feet away from me, the undisputed terrifying overlord of the Chicago syndicate is wearing bright yellow rubber gloves. Vincent is standing at the 3-compartment industrial sink. The Brioni suit jacket is long gone. His expensive white dress shirt is unbuttoned at the collar, the sleeves rolled up past his elbows to protect the silk from the soapy water. He is aggressively scrubbing a plastic cocktail shaker with the intense, calculated precision of a man dismantling a time bomb. It is a deeply surreal image. A man who controls millions of dollars of illicit trade, who commands an army of lethal enforcers, is currently losing a psychological battle against a stubbornly sticky ring of dried brown sugar syrup, the wholesale price of premium black tea. I announced to the empty room, punching a number into my calculator, has increased by 14% this quarter. 14%. That is practically highway robbery. Vincent does not turn around. He rinses the shaker under the hot water tap. If the supplier is extorting you, I can have a team at their distribution center in Taipei by tomorrow morning. We can renegotiate their pricing structure permanently. "No, Vincent," I say flatly, not looking up from my ledger. "You cannot assassinate the global supply chain of tapioca. We pay the invoice like normal law-abiding citizens, even though the shipping logistics from Taiwan are absolutely criminal. Honestly, your underground smuggling routes probably offer better freight rates." Vincent goes quiet. He turns off the tap, placing the clean shaker onto the drying rack. He doesn't reach for the next dirty cup. He just stands there, his hands resting on the edge of the deep metal sink, his broad shoulders rising and falling with a slow, heavy breath. When he finally speaks, his voice has completely changed. The sharp, authoritative tone of the mob boss is gone. It is replaced by something raw, heavy, and exhausted. "I eliminated 3 rival syndicates during our first year of marriage," Vincent says quietly. The words hang in the air, thick and metallic, entirely out of place among the scent of vanilla and roasted tea. I stop typing on the calculator, my finger hovering over the equal sign, but I don't look up. The Russians were making a push for the south side ports. He continues, his voice a low rumble over the sound of the ocean outside. "The Sicilians put a bounty on my head, and by extension yours. Every time we went to one of those banquets, every time we stepped out of the penthouse, I had snipers positioned on adjacent rooftops. I had food tasters. I had escape routes mapped out for every single room we entered." He turns around slowly, pulling the yellow rubber gloves off his hands. He looks at me, his dark eyes hollowed out by the weight of a 3-year-old confession. "You thought I was cold," Vincent says, stepping away from the sink. "You thought I didn't care. When I came home late, when I went straight to the study, when I stared right past you at dinner, it wasn't because I didn't see you, Chloe. It was because I was terrified." I finally look up at him. He is standing in the middle of a pastel-colored kitchen, stripped of all his terrifying power, looking like a man who is bleeding out from an invisible wound. I thought, his voice cracked slightly, a microscopic fracture in his flawless armor. I thought that if I kept my distance, the darkness wouldn't touch you. I thought if I didn't bring the blood into the bedroom, you wouldn't smell it. I built a fortress around you to keep the monsters out. I didn't realize until I found that empty nursery that I had just locked you inside a prison. The silence in the kitchen is absolute. His words are incredibly heavy, carrying the desperate, agonizing logic of a man who only knows how to love through violence and control. It is tragic. It is deeply, profoundly sad. I look at him for a long moment. Then I look back down at my papers. "Do you know how much a commercial lease in Florida costs?" I ask, my voice completely level. Vincent blinks, entirely thrown off balance. His intense emotional confession hits the solid brick wall of my absolute refusal to engage in mafia melodrama. "Chloe, I am trying to explain why. It costs $4,000 a month." I interrupt calmly, tapping my pen against the ledger. "And that doesn't include the commercial plumbing permits. I am running a small business, Vincent. I do not have the emotional bandwidth to process your traumatic, violent methods of affection while I am trying to balance the quarterly taxes." Vincent stares at me. His jaw tightens. He is frustrated, utterly bewildered by my lack of tears or dramatic forgiveness. He turns back to the sink, his movements sharp and agitated. "You are impossible," he mutters, reaching blindly for the heavy-duty commercial water boiler to clean the caramel pot. "I am pragmatic," I correct him. He yanks the lever of the boiler. He is distracted. He is looking at me, not at the machine. The industrial spout releases a sudden violent surge of near-boiling water. It misses the caramel pot entirely and splashes directly over Vincent's bare left forearm. The water is 212 degrees Fahrenheit. Vincent doesn't scream. He doesn't even flinch. His pain tolerance has been so warped by years of physical trauma, gunshot wounds, and torture resistance training that he merely turns off the tap with a slight frown, completely ignoring the angry, blistering red skin rapidly forming on his arm. I drop my pen. I am out of my chair in half a second. "Don't move," I order sharply. I cross the kitchen, grabbing him by the wrist and pulling his arm toward the prep sink. I turn on the cold water tap, forcing his burned forearm under the freezing stream. Vincent offers absolutely no resistance. He just watches me, his dark eyes tracking my every movement with a strange, quiet intensity. "It's fine," he says softly. "I've had worse. I don't care what you've had worse." I snap, my heart hammering against my ribs in a sudden spike of panic. "It's boiling water, you absolute idiot. You are going to blister." I hold his arm under the water for 3 full minutes. The kitchen is dead silent again, but this time the silence is not heavy with the ghosts of Chicago. It is heavy with proximity. I can feel the steady, powerful pulse in his wrist beneath my fingers. I can smell the clean, sharp scent of his cologne, mixed with the faint smell of sea salt from the beach. He is standing so close to me that I can feel the heat radiating off his chest. I turn off the cold water. I grab a clean, soft microfiber towel and gently pat his arm dry. I reach for the first aid kit mounted on the wall, pulling out a tube of burn ointment and a roll of sterile gauze. I begin to carefully apply the ointment to his reddened skin. My fingers are trembling slightly. "You didn't have to leave," Vincent whispers into the quiet space between us. I look up. His face is only inches from mine. The terrifying boss of the syndicate is completely gone. In his place is just a man. A deeply flawed, overthinking, exhaustingly stubborn man who had spent 3 years fighting the whole world just to make sure I was safe, completely forgetting to actually be a husband in the process. "Yes, I did," I reply softly, wrapping the white gauze around his forearm, my movements slow and deliberate. If I had stayed in that penthouse, we both would have drowned in the silence. I had to leave so you could finally see me without the armor. I tie off the bandage and smooth my hand over the white fabric. Vincent doesn't step back. He doesn't pull his arm away. Slowly, hesitantly, as if approaching a wild animal that might bolt, he raises his other hand. His knuckles gently brush against my cheek, tucking a loose strand of hair behind my ear. His touch is impossibly light, terrified of breaking the fragile peace we have finally found. He looks at me, and for the very first time in 3 years, there are no shadows in his eyes. There are no snipers. There are no rival bosses. There is only me. "I see you, Chloe," he murmurs, his voice barely a breath. "I see you." I don't pull away. I just stand there in the quiet kitchen of my boba shop, the smell of burnt sugar in the air, and realize that the man I ran away from is the exact same man I am slowly, terrifyingly falling in love with all over again. Saturday mornings at the Salted Fish are usually defined by the smell of toasted coconut and the endless, chaotic line of tourists craving iced sugar. It had been exactly 3 weeks since Vincent had burned his arm on the commercial water boiler, and a strange domestic rhythm had firmly established itself in my shop. Vincent, the terrifying, undisputed overlord of the Chicago underworld, was currently operating the point-of-sale register. He was wearing a black polo shirt, his sleeves rolled up to reveal his faded scars, and he was taking orders with the terrifying, lethal efficiency of a military commander. Customers were so intimidated by his intense, unblinking eye contact that our average transaction time had dropped to an unprecedented 12 seconds. Marcus was in the back, gently humming a French lullaby to a massive batch of brioche dough. Leo was sitting in his custom-built bulletproof stroller, courtesy of Vincent's paranoid overnight shipping, happily chewing on a silicone spatula. It was a perfect, highly profitable morning. Then the ambient temperature in the room seemed to drop by 10 degrees. I was at the shaker station when I saw them through the front windows. It wasn't a group of local extortionists in cheap leather jackets this time. It was 3 heavily armored matte gray vans pulling up to the curb with absolute terrifying silence. Men began pouring out of the back doors. They were wearing tactical gear, their faces hidden behind dark balaclavas carrying suppressed automatic weapons. This was not a shakedown. This was a synchronized hit. "Uncle Richard," Vincent said. His voice was no louder than a whisper, but it cut through the noise of the shop like a physical blade. Richard was the old guard of the Chicago Syndicate, a ruthless, ambitious man who had always viewed Vincent's leadership as a temporary obstacle. When Vincent had abandoned his post to fly to Florida, Richard clearly saw his window of opportunity. To take the throne, he didn't just have to kill Vincent. He had to eliminate the heirs. He had to eliminate Leo and me. "Code Black." Vincent ordered, his voice dropping into a deadly mechanical register. The 3 tourists currently standing at the counter screamed and dove to the floor. Outside, Vincent's perimeter guards immediately drew their weapons, returning fire as the tactical team advanced. The heavy, muffled, rapid popping sound of suppressed gunfire shattered the peaceful Florida morning. Vincent didn't hesitate. He vaulted over the front counter with predatory grace, a heavy Glock 19 materializing in his hand. "Stay behind the espresso machine, Chloe," he commanded, his eyes completely dialed into the violence outside. He kicked the front door open and stepped out onto the boardwalk, instantly becoming a lethal blur of motion, drawing the heavy fire away from the shop's glass facade. I did not scream. I did not cower. I was incredibly, profoundly annoyed. I ducked behind the reinforced stainless steel counter. "My health inspection is on Monday," I yelled over the sound of shattering glass. "Do not let them bleed on the pastry case." The front windows held up surprisingly well. Vincent had secretly replaced them with ballistic glass last week, but the back door was a different story. A massive crash echoed from the alleyway, followed by the heavy thud of combat boots rushing into the kitchen. 2 tactical hitmen had breached the rear entrance. I grabbed the heavy industrial-grade fire extinguisher mounted beneath the register. One of the hitmen rounded the corner, raising his weapon. He didn't even have time to acquire his target. I yanked the pin, aimed the nozzle directly at his face, and squeezed the trigger. A violent, blinding cloud of freezing white chemical foam erupted across the kitchen, hitting the man squarely in the eyes. He choked, stumbling backward in a panic, his gun firing wildly into the ceiling tiles. I didn't wait. I grabbed a solid block of frozen taro root from the freezer bin and hurled it with the precision of an angry barista. It struck him right in the center of his tactical helmet with a loud breaking sound. He dropped to the floor like a sack of flour. The second hitman burst through the foam cloud, coughing violently, his weapon raised. He was intercepted by a massive, terrifying shadow. Marcus emerged from the prep area. He was completely covered in white flour, wearing his pink floral apron, and his eyes were wide with a psychotic, murderous rage. He wasn't holding a gun. He was wielding a 3-foot-long, solid maple French rolling pin. "You interrupted the resting phase of my brioche." Marcus roared, his voice shaking the foundation of the building. It was the most terrifying thing I have ever witnessed. Marcus swung the massive wooden cylinder like a baseball bat. It connected with the hitman's Kevlar vest with a sickening crunch, sending the man flying backward into the heavy metal dishwashing sink. The hitman groaned, trying to raise his weapon, but Marcus calmly stepped forward and brought the rolling pin down on the weapon's barrel, completely bending the metal. "No running in the kitchen," Marcus growled, kicking the man squarely in the jaw. The hitman went entirely limp. I peeked over the counter. Leo was sitting in his bulletproof stroller, his little hands clapping together as he let out a joyful, bubbling laugh at the chaos. Outside, the gunfire abruptly ceased. The brass bell above the front door gave a sad, crooked chime as it was pushed open. Vincent walked back in. His breathing was heavy, and there was a streak of soot across his cheek, but his eyes were incredibly bright. Through the broken door, I could see Uncle Richard's elite hit squad completely neutralized, handcuffed to the boardwalk railing by Vincent's men. Vincent stepped over the groaning hitman covered in fire-retardant foam. He walked right up to the front counter. The shop was a disaster. There were bullet holes in the ceiling, spilled milk tea pooling on the floor, and a dusting of white powder covering every surface. And right there in the middle of my ruined, sticky, beautiful boba shop, the apex predator of the Chicago underworld dropped down onto one knee. I stared at him, gripping the empty fire extinguisher. "Vincent, if you are checking the floorboards for structural damage, you have to pay for the repairs." "I'm not checking the floorboards," he said quietly. He reached inside his tactical vest and pulled out a thick, legal-sized envelope. He didn't open a velvet box. He didn't offer me a diamond. He pulled out a stack of heavily stamped, notarized legal documents and handed them up to me. "What is this?" I asked, my voice finally losing its pragmatic edge. "It's a transfer of assets," Vincent said, looking up at me, his dark eyes entirely stripped of their armor. "I am dissolving the Chicago Syndicate. All illegal operations are being liquidated. The real estate, the offshore accounts, the front companies, everything is being legally transferred into a corporate holding LLC. He took a slow, steady breath. "I don't want to be a boss anymore, Chloe. I don't want the blood. I don't want the darkness. I want to be a husband. I want to be Leo's father. I am authorizing the release of $200 million to fund the global franchise expansion of the Salted Fish." I stared at the thick stack of papers in my hand. It wasn't just a contract, it was a surrender. The most dangerous man in North America was kneeling in a puddle of spilled tapioca pearls, offering to trade his entire violent empire for a life of making milk tea by my side. $200 million, I whispered. "We can open 50 branches by next year," Vincent said, his voice raw with terrifying, beautiful sincerity. "No more guns, no more banquets, just you, me, and the logistics of the global tapioca supply chain. Please, Chloe, let me do this right." I looked at Marcus, who was leaning against the prep table, gently polishing his maple rolling pin. I looked at Leo, who was happily babbling at his elephant. Then I looked down at the man kneeling before me. A slow, genuine smile spread across my face. I placed the fire extinguisher down on the counter. "Okay," I said softly, reaching out to wipe the soot from his cheek. "But you are still mopping the floors." Vincent let out a short, breathless laugh. He grabbed my hand, pressing his lips to my knuckles in a kiss that felt like an absolute, unbreakable vow. "Yes, boss. There is a very specific, undeniable power in the sheer volume of perfectly cooked tapioca pearls. Exactly 1 year ago, the most terrifying, ruthless criminal syndicate in the American Midwest had officially ceased to exist. In its place, rising from the ashes of illegal gambling rings, underground weapon shipments, and offshore money laundering accounts, was a corporate entity that terrified the global beverage market. The Salted Fish LLC was no longer just a small pastel-colored shop on the sun-bleached boardwalk of Seaside, Florida. We had exactly 52 active branches operating across the United States. It turns out that when you take an elite, highly disciplined organization of men who are entirely accustomed to executing complex cross-border smuggling operations and you redirect their immense logistical talents toward the distribution of premium Taiwanese black tea, the results are catastrophically efficient. I am standing behind the pristine stainless steel counter of our flagship store. The morning sun is pouring through the reinforced ballistic glass windows, a permanent fixture. Vincent absolutely refused to uninstall, casting long golden shadows across the pink floor tiles. The air smells intensely of caramelized brown sugar, roasted coconut, and the faint, salty breeze of the Atlantic Ocean. I wipe down the espresso machine with a clean microfiber cloth, moving with a slow, deliberate laziness that I have fiercely protected. I am the co-founder and legal owner of a $200 million corporate franchise, but I still refuse to do anything that closely resembles actual stressful work. The brass bell above the front door chimes. I do not look up. I don't need to. Welcome to the Salted Fish. The greeting is roared at a volume that rattles the pastry display case. Outside on the boardwalk, a line of eager, terrified tourists is wrapping around the block. Manning the front door is a pair of massive, heavily scarred men wearing custom-tailored dark trousers, crisp white dress shirts, and impeccably clean pastel pink aprons. They are former cartel enforcers. Now they are our senior customer experience specialists. Please have your payment methods ready. The guard on the left barks, standing perfectly at attention with his hands clasped behind his back. He glares at a group of college students with the intense, unblinking focus of a sniper. We highly recommend the taro milk tea. It has been chef approved. Do you require a reusable straw for environmental sustainability? The college students practically trip over themselves to aggressively nod and accept the metal straws, deeply afraid that refusing the environmental sustainability initiative might result in a broken kneecap. It is the most intimidating, flawless customer service model the service industry has ever witnessed. Our Yelp reviews are a terrifying collection of 5-star ratings from people who explicitly mention that the tea is phenomenal and the staff makes them fear for their mortal souls. I smile softly and carry a tray of empty plastic cups toward the back kitchen. If the front of the house is a masterclass in psychological intimidation, the kitchen is a terrifying military dictatorship. I push open the swinging double doors. The intense heat of the industrial ovens washes over me, carrying the rich, intoxicating scent of melting butter and vanilla bean. Do not overwork the gluten. A massive booming voice echoes off the stainless steel walls. Marcus, the former Apex assassin and current executive head of global pastry development, is pacing up and down the prep line. He is wearing a towering white chef's hat and a pink apron that barely covers his massive tattooed chest. Standing at attention before him is a line of 6 heavily muscled, terrifying-looking men who used to run extortion rackets in downtown Chicago. Right now, they are all intensely focused on holding silicone piping bags. Baking is an exact science, Marcus growled, stopping in front of a man with a skull tattoo on his neck. It requires discipline. It requires respect. If you fold that egg white too aggressively, the macaron shells will crack. And if the macaron shells crack, Giovanni, I'm going to make you eat the baking sheet. Are we clear? Yes, chef. The ex-convicts scream in absolute terrified unison. Pipe the batter, Marcus commands. The men immediately begin piping perfectly symmetrical circles of pink almond batter onto the parchment paper with the lethal, steady-handed precision of men trained to assemble assault rifles blindfolded. I grab a fresh bottle of vanilla extract from the dry storage rack and quietly slip back out to the front counter. I do not interfere with Marcus's battalion. I walk back into the main dining area and look toward the far corner of the room. Table 4 no longer exists. In its place is a sleek, custom-built mahogany desk that looks entirely out of place in a boba shop. Sitting behind it, surrounded by glowing monitors displaying global shipping routes and supply chain analytics, is my husband. Vincent is wearing a dark, incredibly expensive polo shirt. The rigid, suffocating Italian suits of the Chicago syndicate are completely gone, replaced by a relaxed elegance that makes him look younger, warmer, and infinitely more dangerous to my heart rate. He is currently on a video conference call, speaking in a low, terrifyingly calm voice. I do not care about the geopolitical issues affecting the port of Long Beach, Vincent says smoothly, his dark eyes fixed on the screen. You guaranteed delivery of 3 tons of premium fructose syrup by Tuesday. If that cargo ship does not dock, I will personally acquire your entire logistics company, fire your board of directors, and liquidate your assets. Have the syrup on the trucks by midnight. He reaches forward and ends the call with a sharp click of his mouse. He has seamlessly transitioned his ruthless, predatory mafia negotiation tactics into the corporate beverage sector. Our suppliers are universally terrified of him. We have the lowest overhead costs in the entire nation. I walk toward his desk, carrying a plastic shaker cup. As I get closer, I see the absolute best part of the entire scene. Sitting squarely on Vincent's lap, completely ignoring the multi-million-dollar corporate threats his father just issued, is Leo. Our son is a year and a half old now. He is wearing a tiny custom-made pink apron over his toddler clothes. He is aggressively smashing a plastic toy elephant against the mahogany desk, babbling loudly about a dog he saw on the beach this morning. Vincent, the fearsome director of supply chain management, doesn't even flinch at the noise. He just instinctively wraps one large scarred arm securely around Leo's waist to keep him from falling off the chair while using his other hand to type an email. "You're going to give the fructose supplier a heart attack, Vincent," I say, stepping up to the side of the desk. Vincent stops typing. The cold, calculating business mask instantly vanishes the second he looks at me. His dark eyes soften, warming with that quiet, profound devotion that still makes my breath catch in my throat even a year later. "He was trying to increase the tariff by 3%, Vincent replies, seriously leaning back in his chair. "It was an unacceptable breach of contract. I had to establish dominance. You are a menace to the global trade economy," I tell him. "I am protecting our profit margins," he corrects me smoothly. Leo looks up, spots me, and immediately drops his plastic elephant. "Mama!" He squeals, reaching his chubby arms up toward me. I lean down and kiss the top of Leo's soft hair, breathing in the scent of baby shampoo and the faint trace of powdered sugar he definitely picked up from Marcus in the kitchen. Then I look at Vincent. I place the cold, perfectly shaken cup of strawberry milk tea with rainbow jelly on the desk in front of him. Vincent looks at the pink beverage, then up at me. A slow, incredibly handsome smile spreads across his face. It is a real smile. It reaches all the way to his eyes, completely erasing the shadows of the violent life we left behind. "Thank you, Chloe," he murmurs softly. He reaches out, but he doesn't take the tea. Instead, his large hand gently wraps around my waist, pulling me close to the edge of the desk. He presses a soft, lingering kiss to my stomach, right over the canvas fabric of my cartoon whale apron. I rest my hand on his broad shoulder, looking out across the bustling, chaotic, incredibly loud shop we have built. I think about the penthouse in Chicago. I think about the dead, suffocating silence of those massive rooms, the cold dinners, the unanswered calls, and the heavy, terrifying weight of the diamond ring I left on his desk. I think about the girl who packed a single diaper bag and ran away into the night, desperate to escape a world that was slowly freezing her to death. I look at the man sitting in front of me now, a man who traded an empire of blood and shadow for a life of spreadsheets, spilled tapioca, and holding his son in the middle of a Tuesday afternoon. Power is a strange, deceptive concept. For 3 years, I thought absolute power meant having 100 armed men standing outside your door ready to kill at a moment's notice. But standing here in the Florida sun, listening to the ocean breeze and the cheerful, terrifying shouts of our ex-mafia baristas, I finally understand the truth. True power isn't about how many people fear you. True power is having the absolute freedom to choose peace. It is the profound, quiet luxury of being completely, unapologetically lazy, knowing that the most dangerous man in the world will gladly put down his guns, roll up his sleeves, and shake a cup of milk tea just to see you smile. Vincent takes a sip of his strawberry tea. He looks up at me, his eyes bright and steady. "What are you thinking about?" he asks quietly, his thumb gently drawing circles on my hip. I smile, leaning down to press a soft kiss to his forehead. "I am thinking," I whisper against his skin, "that we need to order more brown sugar."